Hi, I'm Vincenzo Deniston, and my project was on employee compensation and the impact of employee compensation in the workplace. So, an introduction. Compensation is a very important factor when choosing a job, and it also contributes to an employee's well-being. Compensation has changed drastically over the last 100 years. Wages used to be based specifically on the work you did or goods produced over a particular week, month, or year. Even new advances to technology in the 20th century had very little impact on the way workers were paid. Without things like health insurance, life insurance, retirement planning, sick leave, people had to fend for themselves without money saved up, so it really was a time for a change. During the Great Depression, 25% of the workforce was unemployed. The Social Security Act of 1935 provided a system for employees to be protected from losing your job, which was very popular in the time, and retirement. At first, when Social Security was enacted, it benefited 60% of the workforce, and after several amendments, it benefited up to 90% of the workforce. It was the first actual benefit created for working people by Congress, and it gave people protection to enjoy the latter years of their life. The National Labor Act of 1935 brought huge changes to labor unions and workers bargaining collectively. During this time period in the early 1930s, the population of labor unions rose from 3.8 million to 9 million, the largest in U.S. history. The Davis-Bacon Act of 1931 and the Walsh-Healy Act of 1936 provided wage standards for employees, contractors, subcontractors, and employees that were employed in public construction. Since construction jobs in this time were in such abundance, these laws gave protection to a large majority of the workforce at that time. The Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938 set equal working conditions, rules, and requirements for most workers. This act also established minimum wages for workers and how many hours an employee could legally work every week. It also created overtime standards for employees. If somebody was supposed to work 40 hours, say, and they work 50 hours instead, the Fair Labor Standards Act required that the employee be compensated at time and 1/2 for the extra 10 hours that employee worked. The Fair Labor Standards Act worked hand in hand with the Social Security Act. It provided important extra benefits to employees outside of just their basic wages. The government now made it possible for workers to have a set living wage while still working a reasonable amount of hours, which was often not possible before these acts were created. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 is a federal law which prohibits pay discrimination based specifically on gender. There has been a debate about what equal pay really is. The Equal Pay Act says the two jobs do not have to be identical to basically be considered the same job. According to the Act, job title is not a determining factor. It's actually about the actual work getting done. Jobs are considered equal when they are equal in terms of required skill, effort, responsibility, and are performed in similar working conditions. The Act also specifies that two employees with equal jobs, but in the case where one employee has extra skills that go above and beyond this job, this employee should be compensated for their extra skills. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act protected against discrimination based on race, religion, national origin, gender, and many other things. Okay, some more labor laws here. Wages and Fair Labor Standards Act of 2009. It established a minimum wage, overtime pay, record keeping, and youth development standards for employees both in the private sector, employees in the federal, state, and local governments. and it gave security to government employees in states with low minimum wage, and it paid them the federal minimum wage instead, meaning if a government employee worked in a state where the state's minimum wage was lower than the federal minimum wage, they would get paid the federal minimum wage instead. So it provided a little bit of safety net for employees. Federal Employees Compensation Act compensates for workers who are on the job and get injured. So it's workman's compensation. It's the origins of that. The Federal Employee Compensation Act provides support to this idea of workers' compensation. It provides benefits for wages lost and compensation for total or partial disability. It also pays for related medical costs and vocational rehabilitation. So the Connecticut Family Medical Leave Act gives employees the right to take as much as 16 weeks in a 2-year period for serious health conditions, and pregnancy is included as a serious health condition. The pregnancy discrimination law does not technically require employees to let their employees take off from work, but they must treat it as a temporary disability or an illness. The Federal Medical Leave Act is a little more receptive to employees in smaller companies, only requiring 50 or more employees, as opposed to 75 to gain the benefits of the federal FMLA. So on the state level, it's receptive to smaller companies. At my employer personally, Webster Bank, a new parental leave benefit is now provided for both mothers and fathers who want to take off time for the birth of their child. Webster allows 2 paid weeks of vacation for both mothers and fathers who have a newborn child, in addition to their regular paid time off that they receive throughout the year. So I work at Webster Bank as a universal banker, and my job is to work in a banking center, to sell products, to make referrals, to open accounts for people, perform different operational banking day-to-day needs for the branch and for customers, perform transactions. So the Webster Bank created the WIN program as a way to add incentives as extra motivation to drive sales. And the purpose of this program is to give employees incentive to sell and to reach their monthly sales goals in a more organized, points-based program that is tailored to the specific banking center that you are working in. Along with sales goals, the program offers bonus amount of points to things like excellent customer service and operational scores. And each employee has a hurdle and a monthly fair share goal. Once you reach your hurdle, you get an additional incentive payout, and your fair share goal is really 100% of your goal, which is what you need to achieve so your team can achieve 100% as well. And these goals are determined by things like if you're part-time or full-time, what your specific position is, how many hours a week you work. There are many ways an employee can achieve their monthly goal. You can open checking and savings accounts, sell loans and lines of credit, and make referrals to various banking needs we provide to customers like financial advisor, merchant referrals, mortgage banking officers, and each type of referral is worth a certain amount of points. So there's many different ways for an employee to achieve their specific goal every month. It gives variety. Customer service scores are given to each individual branch and reflect how positive or negative customers feel they have been treated in the branch. Excellent operations also provide the branch with extra points at the end of the quarter. In conclusion, I think the WIN program is a great way to organize how each employee and branch will achieve their monthly goal. It gives the organization an easy-to-understand system based on points to measure performance and to determine future performance goals based on how well each banking center performs for the upcoming quarters. Something I do also like about the program is that it allows individuals to achieve and earn incentives even if you're not the busiest banking center in the world. So where I work, it's not very busy, so our goals will be lower than somewhere where it is very busy. So it allows employees everywhere to achieve their goals. One thing I would change, though, is more emphasis on points be awarded to the operational side of the job. These are things we do on an everyday basis, and it would be good to be rewarded on a personal level for how accurate you perform every day. So my references. Thank you very much.